Hello and welcome to episode 417 of the Stacey West podcast. My name is Gary. I will be your host for this evening, and if my sound just went a little weird, it's because I realised I hadn't selected the right microphone before going live. I will be joined on this already technically deficient episode by somebody who is stats efficient. Mr. Chris Lamming, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I've also got a very high-tech solution because I very rarely listen to these podcasts back. But I did listen to the most recent one with myself and Ben because, you know, when you kind of think, you say a couple of things and you don't know how you came across, like you have an idea in your head of what you want to say and then you're not quite sure whether that's actually what happened. And then I realised when listening to it back that my mic sounded like I was miles away. So I have thought, right, what can I do to try and make the microphone be closer to my mouth? And it's currently propped up on 3 mugs right now. So 1 mug under each little leg, because I couldn't find anything else that went on top of it because we're trying to sell our house at the moment. So there's just nothing extra lying around. Like everything's in cupboards or in my old bedroom at Dad's house. So I thought, I don't know if it sounds any different, but I feel quite pleased with myself that I've made a very high-tech solution to a technological problem. Yeah, well, I'm all right, though.
I'd have thought Ben would have picked up on that, being Mr. Tech. I thought he might have gone, he sounds crap.
Yeah, well, maybe he's just too polite. But in comparison to his audio, I thought mine wasn't quite so good. So hopefully mine's better today. And if it is, so people in the comments, and please do say, whether it's noticeably different or not, then I'll use this solution every time going forward.
Brilliant. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice that I have a slightly different setup. We've had a complete move around in the office, ready for the arrival of the fridge on Friday just gone. So I am currently experimenting with the new backdrop, but should all be Lincoln City related. I took apart from the fridge magnets that you can just see over my shoulder, which are dog related. So I must fix those, and hopefully my sound is very good as well. Sadly, said fridge didn't arrive on Friday, or rather it did arrive on Friday, but I made a minor miscalculation in terms of getting it in the house. You can't get a double American fridge through a small farmhouse door without paying a service charge to Currys for them to take the doors off. And they did say to me, well, we can leave it and you can take the doors off. But given that I was meant to do some skirting in the kitchen 3 years ago, and said skirting is still painted, lent up in the shed waiting to go on, I didn't want to risk leaving my brand new fridge out in the lovely British weather this afternoon.
Not ideal at all. To be honest, I thought you were going to be gloating today.
Thought you'd bring it up first. Let you bring it up first.
Well, it was just that we had an afternoon and evening together yesterday playing pool, and I just fully expected you to start the podcast by gloating about your victory, and now I feel quite silly for bringing it up.
Yep,
and saying that you won.
I mean, seeing as you mentioned it, we ought to just very quickly mention it in that we had 3 sessions. We had a pre-game session, we had the before tea session, and we had the early evening session. And pre-game it was 3-3. Post-game before tea, it was 9-all.
Yeah.
And then I just smashed a bum out of it. And I think it ended up at something like 16-10, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah, I know. I think I won by 5 games.
When we went back out after dinner, I felt like I was playing against Ronnie O'Sullivan. It was impossible.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. No, it must be those burgers must give me some puppy power or something like that. It's like spinach to Popeye. And unfortunately, nobody gave Lincoln City a spinach. Yesterday, we'll segue into talking about Lincoln because I'm sure nobody wants to hear how good I am at pool or how rubbish I am at keeping my food cold at the moment. So we will move on to talk about the game, Leyton Orient away. We haven't actually won in the capital on a Saturday afternoon since April 2022 when we beat Charlton Athletic and Morgan Whittaker was sent off. And we haven't won in the capital since we beat Leyton Orient in Michael Scavala's first win. But that being a rearranged game and considering we were losing the original game, trips to London don't particularly work for us. And I think Gary Powell put something to that effect on Twitter. And yet we all felt very confident going into the game. We should really have known that London ain't a good place for Lincolnshire lads, unless they're running a marathon, of course.
Of course.
Of course. Team selection, Chris. The big one. Let's discuss it. James Collins, should he have started?
No. I think it made sense yesterday to start Rob Street for the similar reasons that he started against Stevenage. Against Stevenage, it was more about kind of in possession. He was running in behind, trying to exploit the space behind Stevenage there, kind of slower backline. Yesterday, I felt it was important to press really high because Leyton Orient do like to possess the ball, do like to play through the thirds. And I felt having that extra little bit of athleticism would probably help. And also the fact that Rob scored last game, and it's very harsh to drop a centre forward off the back of scoring. I know we mentioned the reason of his inclusion in the last match was kind of horses for courses. So then the argument falls down then, doesn't it? If you think, well, he scored, so he needs to play, that kind of defeats the object of that argument. But I felt it would be really harsh for him not to start. I don't know if it was quite as cut and dry a decision as it was against Stevenage. And yeah, we'll never know whether it was the right decision or not now, will we, sadly?
Well, you see, I disagree with you. I believe that James Collins should have started yesterday. Now, whether that is at the expense of Rob Street or whether that was at the expense of Freddie Draper, and then Ben House plays in the middle with Rico on one flank and Street on the other. But I think the reason I would have started him is we have had now three games where we've had fast starts, Exeter and Stevenage, and now Orient, and where centre forwards have spurned really good chances. All three games, centre forwards have spurned really good chances. And who hasn't been on the end of those really good early spurned chances? James Collins.
Yeah, it's a good
me.
point.
You talk about pressing high and all that sort of stuff. Actually, what we're looking at the minute is scoring early, and we're going to draw comparisons with another game earlier in the season, which was almost identical to this one that we won. For me, James Collins is on the pitch. He probably scores the goal that Ben House misses. Probably. I don't agree that it's absolute lunacy, as somebody's saying in the comments, because I think Draper technically started in a slightly different position to where Collins would. Draper started a little bit deeper, so you'd still have to have a reshuffle. It would be Street for Collins in yesterday's setup, but I would have started him. I agree with the sentiment. I agree with popular fans' sentiment. That's unusual, isn't it?
That does make a change. I certainly buy the reasoning there. As I said, I don't think it was quite as cut and dry. It made really obvious sense against Stevenage to start Rob Street, in my opinion. I don't think it was as obvious this time, but I could see why he started. In hindsight, and a wonderful thing, isn't it? After we had the luxury of actually seeing how Orient set up and played, I think it would have made a lot of sense for us to start James Collins, Rob Street to play wide, House to play on the other flank, and Fred in the centre, and maybe Rico to drop to the bench tactically more than anything, because of how Orient's left side set up in and out possession, and exactly with the added benefit that would then give us of the chances that we created in the first 15-20 minutes were enough to win a couple of games, really. And the one player in the squad who you would as near to guarantee as possible that would have a good chance of tucking one of those away, of course, is James Collins. So yeah, completely get that.
My starting 11 that I picked then was pretty much on the nose. So I had the power of hindsight.
Yeah, I didn't see your prediction, to be honest, so I can't possibly comment.
I just got to say this. Steve in Essex has said, "Wow, you two look good on a 65-inch screen." Nobody's ever said that before. But the football we watched, it was the first game you and I have watched together on my new 65-inch screen, wasn't it, as well? So yeah, all good. Right, so look, that's team selection. I don't think there was anything else major. Adam Reach.
I think there's one. Yeah, I think that's the big one, really.
But he missed out, didn't he? It wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
So. Rather than choices, and we'll come on to whether we missed Reach or not. The fact is, we started the game inside 4 minutes. We'd had two efforts that were XG of 0.30, which made up, I think, a third of all of our XG. It made up cumulatively. Leyton Orient hadn't reached 0.30 by the time they scored their goal. So we had two great chances in the first minute. It's the second minute one I want to talk about. Is it a save or has he missed it? It's Ben House. It comes over the top, doesn't it? He's got time. He lets it drop. I think you shouted offside, but he'd managed to stay on side. He's caught it beautifully, kind of on like a half volley. I think the keeper tips it onto the bar, and I know some people have talked about missing it. I think probably a James Collins buries it, if I'm entirely honest. But it was just probably reflective of how our look in front of goal has been over the last 3 games, as opposed to the 10 or 11 games before that, in that it's cannoned back off the bar.
Yeah. I don't want to criticise Ben at all. He's caught it brilliantly. I think it's a great strike. He's done everything he needs to. I think he's hit the target. I think the keeper saved it. I think it's a brilliant save. It doesn't count as a shot on target, oddly, but I think it was. But ultimately, I don't think there's a lot wrong with that. That is just one of those moments which it was a good effort and a good save. And if that was the sign of things to come, then you would hope that we would then bury one of the chances that came after it. That's one that probably goes in one every 2 attempts, something along those lines. Maybe officially, statistically, it's 1 every 3. Does James Collins bury it? Maybe, but I don't think he has a much better connection in that moment than Ben did. It's the other chances after that we didn't take. And also, by chances, I don't just mean shots. I mean balls in the box, dangerous areas, not quite getting on the end of them, staying on side, because there'll be a couple of Rico's opportunities in the game which don't even count as shots because they were classed as offside, but they were great positions to get into. So that moment, big moment, obviously would have been brilliant for us to score. But for me, it was the pressure that we kept on Orient for the next sort of 10, 15 minutes after that and didn't capitalise on that.
There was 2, wasn't there? Issue. There was 2. There was McGrandles 2 minutes later, which I think has come from a corner. And again, our set piece delivery wasn't entirely on it yesterday. Probably whether it was better defending, I don't know. But that they did come from a corner. I think McGrandles' chance, and he's again. I said, you'd love Tom Bayliss on that, but Tom Bayliss has done exactly the same in the second half. So what can you say? And then there was the one across, which, yes, Rico's offside, but had Fred been an inch or 2 further forward, he pokes it in from the edge of the 6-yard box. And to be fair, you said pre-game, they're not good at balls into the box. They concede a lot from inside their own 6-yard box. And that's where it looked like the threat was coming from. And those 3 chances all packed together were reminiscent certainly of Exeter, and to a degree Stevenage. And probably we forget about it a little bit against Stevenage because we've gone on to win the game. But against Exeter, it was almost like a carbon copy to a degree, up to a certain point of that, in that we should be ahead. And then things just began to take a little bit of a turn as the game pressed on.
Yeah, first 15 to 20 minutes, we were really good. And in terms of the territory, I think was really good as well. I know Leyton Orient had a lot of the ball, but it was all in their own third. And we set up and pressed and harried, and just as we hoped to, really. I think that first 15, 20 minutes was the best case scenario of exactly how we all hoped that the game was going to go. In my mind, how I'd kind of predicted a good day looking, other than the ball not hitting the net. But after we didn't take those chances in the early part of the game, you're right, it did kind of fizzle out a little bit from there. Once Orient were able to kind of work out our threats a little bit and to get a little bit extra settled possession, because once they get into their settled shape, they can then dominate the ball, dominate the game in possession. I wouldn't say they dominated at any point in the game in terms of like chances and kind of the territory, but in terms of just the control that they had, they were completely in control for the majority of the game after that first 15 to 20 minutes, I felt.
Well, first 15 minutes, this is what's really interesting, is there was 2 shots that you can throw in the Freddie Draper chance because Rico was offside. So three efforts. Our XG was 0.53 from those 2 efforts. Collectively, it was 0.9. So our two biggest chances, like over half of the quality chances, came in the first 4 minutes, but we still only had 20% possession. And we're here kind of saying, we exerted that dominance, we kept the pressure on. We did that just by having the ball 20% of the time, which I think is really interesting. And then after that, for the next 30 minutes of the half, we had 1 shot off target. They had 1 shot on target. Neither of those got to 0.1 XG, but our possession actually came up to 26%. that it's going to be difficult really for us to talk about anything that happens from 15 minutes to 45 minutes, because not a lot really did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think what's worth pointing out is that of that possession that Leyton Orient had in the first half, and you say 80% is, we're used to not having a lot of the ball, but I think that's quite an extreme number, isn't it? Obviously, I don't think you can do a lot with 20% of the ball. The vast majority of the possession that Orient had was inside their own third and the middle third, and primarily in their own half. At least more than double the number of passes in their own half compared to the opposition, which is something that we're normally pretty used to. I think that's something that we're pretty good at. The concern I had, and this is probably more prominent in the second half, was when we had the ball, when we did win the ball back, we were actually, it was our in possession work was below par yesterday. I felt that once Orient weathered that initial storm, I felt watching it, we were a little bit one-dimensional. I felt we then therefore became quite predictable. And yeah, Richie Williams is a smart manager. Leyton Orient do have good players and are able to deal with that. But in terms of goal-mouth action, yeah, you're right. From all of our huff and our puff in the first few minutes, not really many notable moments of the game until halftime from either team.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about passing, I put some numbers out in my article. The eye test said we're not good on the ball. The stats test said we're not good on the ball, and I think our passing was 65% pass accuracy overall. Now you can sometimes forgive that. I think if your kind of sideways and backwards passes are quite high, your forward passes, you're trying something and they're not landing. But actually, our lateral passes, so our kind of sideways passes, that was 65% as well. Now you may put that down to Orient cutting out passing lanes and that sort of thing, but there was once or twice where I just looked exasperated because it didn't look like the Lincoln City that we'd seen for the previous 12, 13 games of the season. It looked really sloppy. It looked at times like Lincoln City from Christmas of last year. And I think one or two of the players that struggled a little bit when they were on the ball were a couple of the players who last season you were looking at saying, God, if they were only consistent 90% of the time, we'd be top six. Well, they've been consistent for most of this season, but it was just one or two. I mean, I'm looking, I don't want to, when I say individuals, I'm not calling these out and saying they were having a bad game. But, I think McGrandle's misplaced a couple. Tom Bayliss certainly did. Rico certainly did. We just looked a little bit, I'm not going to say uncomfortable in possession, but just a little bit kind of lapsadaisical in possession. Like the intensity and the organisation that we've had over the last 180 minutes of Sincil Bank, because the Exeter game, let's not fool ourselves, we played really well in. We were unlucky to lose that game. Everyone came away from that game while we were the better team, but we just weren't on it, were we? The passing was just poor. What we did with the ball yesterday, post first 15 minutes, was just not good enough.
Yeah, just interestingly on McGrandles, I actually thought he was. There was one pass I remember that he misplaced. I thought he was one of the better players on the ball. I'm just looking at the numbers here. 81% pass accuracy. So that's exactly the same as what he normally has. It's second best in our team. Rico Hackett, oddly, 11 out of 11, 100% pass accuracy for us yesterday. But everyone else was well below what we'd normally expect. So there's not a lot to discuss here because we normally look to discuss the game, what we see, and then do the numbers back it up, and then we kind of try and build a clear picture here. The clear picture yesterday was we had loads of chances at the start of the game. We didn't take them. We looked not brilliant in possession, and the numbers backed that up. We weren't. We were down about 25 to 30% on our total number of successful passes per game, and also the total amount in the opposition half, which is one thing that normally we've been pretty good at. Normally we have the lowest number of successful passes in League One, but we're normally pretty good in terms of how many of the passes that we do have are in the areas of the pitch that are going to hurt the opposition. For want of a better phrase, we don't piss about with it normally. But we were really low. We only had 64 successful passes in the opposition half in the whole of the game yesterday. That's not enough to create any sort of sustained pressure. So yeah, it was just in possession. It was in possession that was poor yesterday. Actually, out of possession, I thought we were fine, particularly in our own third. Defended our box really well. Both centre-backs won loads of their duels as usual. We got loads of blocks in as we usually do. There wasn't a lot of issues. It was just in possession. And I think you have to credit Orient a little bit in this regard. This hasn't really been mentioned too much. We've been mentioning a lot about how we weren't very good and on the ball, and we weren't brilliant. But Orient's tactical setup was pretty interesting, because out of possession yesterday, certainly we were very much a 4-4-2. Fred and Rob Street were pressing pretty high as a two. Now, Orient lined up in a kind of a 4-3-3 sort of shape. But what happened is their left back, I forget the chap's name now. No, forgotten it. Whoever was playing left back for them, Craig. He in possession, he popped into centre midfield and was sitting next to Claire. So they had a double pivot when they had the ball in settled possession. And because we were pressing as a front two, that left us outnumbered in the centre of the pitch. Often 4v2, certainly 4v3 sometimes if someone else came in central. So then you saw later in the game, Rico had to go more and more central. At times, Rob Street found himself really, really deep. And I think our out of possession shape wasn't exactly how we wanted it to be due to Orient's in possession shape. Now, how do you stop that? Is you either stop it at source and don't let them transition into settled possession, or you've got to be bold and let them have an extra man and say, come on, and then beat us. We'll have an extra. You can have an extra man, and then we've got an outlet. But that's not us. We never let the opposition have extra men in midfield. So I want to say, yeah, we absolutely were below par with the ball, but also well played Richie Wellens in terms of how he set his team up tactically to give them an overload in a part of the pitch that we normally defend really, really well. They didn't capitalise on it too much in the final third, of course, but I think in terms of control, them having an extra player in the centre of the pitch took us out of our settled shape. And when we countered, we then didn't have the outlet that we normally do to get in behind us quick, I don't think. So it came back quicker.
I'm just going to defend Tom Bayliss, by the way, who played more passes than Conor McGrandles and Rico Hackett. Not quite as accurate, but certainly got on the ball more. And Conor wasn't on the ball half as much as he has been throughout the season. Now, that isn't always entirely his fault, because the passes may not have been finding him. But he played, whilst his pass accuracy was around the same, the number of passes that he made was significantly different to other matches this season. So actually, we weren't able to get him on the ball quite as much. Hence why the eye test suggests that he was a little bit more anonymous. I'm not blaming him specifically for that. I can see you pulling a face. Are you disagreeing with my numbers?
Well, I'm not on Y Scout right now because you are. I'm looking at FOTMOB. Yep. Successful passes in the whole game, Tom Bayliss 10, Conor McGrandles 17.
Yeah, you see. That's the problem with stats, isn't it? Because it was we've got 23 passes. I'm not success-wise, he played fewer, whereas Conor McGrandles only played 15. So he only played 2 more successful passes than Bayliss, but Bayliss did attempt more, so he was on the ball more. And whilst Conor attempted 18 and played 15 in previous games, 28, 37, 25, 40, 40, 30. So had the ball far less in order to be able to do anything with it. So
yeah.
Right,
can I just add one little thing to that? And it's more about Orient. And again, we don't mind teams having the ball. We proved this against Peterborough, didn't we? We like the opposition to have it. Doesn't matter if they have it in their back line. But of the total, not in terms of success, but just total number of accurate passes, you look at the just the list. In the top 10 players in the whole game, 9 of them are Orient players. And they're not just defenders. I think that's the key. If they're all defenders, it doesn't matter. But Mizuni's up there, Connolly's up there, Abdullahi is up there, all with more successful passes than any of our players. So I think that does tell a little bit of a story. Whether the numbers are exact or not, it paints a picture, doesn't it? In that Orient looked after the ball far better than we did.
Does it paint a picture of them? Does it paint a picture of them looking after the ball better than we did, or was not simply not challenging enough?
Well, that's the great question. Again, this is where the numbers don't always align with the view, because I, watching yesterday, felt we probably weren't dropping on second balls as often as we normally do.
Great.
But then looking at the numbers, our recoveries are pretty much in line with the average of what they are throughout the whole season, which suggests that we kind of were compared to normal. So then the only real outliers is the fact that when we did win the ball, it came back at us pretty quick. Our average, I think, pass sequence was like 2.6 or something. So basically, whenever we had the ball, Orient had it back within 3 passes, more often than not. And that's quite low, isn't it? So we just didn't look. And we're not a team that likes possession, but when we did have the ball, we didn't do a huge amount other than those little flashes.
Yeah. Let's have a quick word about the referee, because I'm not somebody who likes to regularly criticise a referee. I'll go in on one when they deserve it, but I am always trying to look to give a referee the benefit. And if a referee does well, we also praise referees on here, Seb Stockbridge being one who has really changed perception. Yesterday's referee, Stephen Parkinson, this season has refereed games involving Luton and Wigan and Lincoln, but also Aldershot and Wealdstone. He's still refereeing partially in the National League. He's still also stepping up to League One. Now, I felt he was a weak referee yesterday, and I'm hoping you'll remember why, because we commented on it during the game. He didn't make any major decision that was wrong. There was degrees of inconsistency, and it felt to me like he kind of broke things up a little bit, and maybe that suited us. But for me, this referees doing National League and League One, it's ridiculous. If you're promoted at work, you're not asked to do half of your job, your old job, every so often, are you? They're two completely different levels, different games, different people, different things to referee. For me, you should almost have a League Two list, a League One list, and a National League list. This mixing them all together just dilutes the quality. And I think generally this season, more than any other season, the quality of officials has been noticeably weaker, bar the ones that perhaps we've had for a few seasons in a row, the likes of Seb Stockbridge, etc. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. When we were watching it yesterday, I was with you getting a bit frustrated at the ref. In hindsight, I don't actually think any decision he made had any real impact on the game directly in terms of the scoreline. And I'm thinking maybe we were getting most annoyed at the ref after we were 1-0 down. So there's probably an element of frustration there at the result.
No, I think we were doing it the first half as well. We remarked on it first half, definitely.
Yeah, I would say that I just don't think he had a huge impact. Now, I think we might come across this more often this season, though, because if we have a referee in our games that is allowing a little bit of extra physicality, I think that really suits us because we generally have the physical edge over most teams that we play against. So if we have a referee that's maybe a little less lenient, a little stricter in giving softer fouls, I think that can come up to. I'm not going to say it's a huge factor, but it doesn't play into our hands because we're not going to not be as aggressive. We're not going to be less intense to try and cater for a referee. We want to be us. So yesterday, I think there were a few moments where there was a few soft elements or inconsistencies where in other games the play would be allowed to just carry on. So maybe there's an element of that, but I think you'll get that. You'll get that a lot this year, and particularly when we know what our strengths are, the physical side of the game. When you have a ref that then almost limits the impact of that, it makes us look worse and feel worse, and it probably has a bigger impact on us than two teams that would be more evenly matched on the physical perspective. But yeah, looking back, as much as I had a few frustrating moments, you get that in most games and most referees. I don't think he had a huge impact yesterday. I don't think we'd have not lost the game if it was.
No, I've never said that. What I've said is that I felt that the referee was weak in many areas. 25 seconds injury time when there was an actual injury. For me, it just shows that, and we would have done nothing in that injury time. You and I had this conversation. It doesn't matter. For me, blowing up at 45-25 just is a degree of inexperience. Surely there's got to be a minute's injury time in 45 minutes. If he then adds a minute on to his minimum of 6 minutes at the end of the game, how do you find a minute inside 6 minutes, but you only find 25 seconds inside 45? And I think we've seen referees that have struggled to deal with time wasting. We've seen referees who, was it Exeter, where he booked the Exeter keeper first half for time wasting and then did nothing for the rest of the game. We saw the guy at Mansfield losing his head, handing cards out like he's bloody a branch of Clintons or something. And yet we've had some good referees. Martin Coy, Stevenage, the referee against Stevenage, I thought had a decent game, a little bit kind of get on with it, but he let you get on with it. And when it did turn nasty, he's like, right, I'm booking you, and that was that. Sensible refereeing. And it's not particularly something that he did yesterday where I go, he missed a penalty. He didn't. We didn't lose the game because of the referee. No, I'm absolutely not suggesting that. What I'm saying is he took a little bit of my enjoyment away by just not being all that good at his job. He was a little bit finicky. He was a little bit picky. There was one or two. I mean, there was a couple of fouls where you just go, that's not a foul, ref, that he's given it. And like breaking the play up worked for us probably yesterday because, you know, when we go away, we probably wanted to get the early goal. We might have wanted to break the play up, turn the home crowd a little bit. So I'm not saying that it worked even against us. Just saying I thought that he was just wishy-washy. Like, if you're going to be wishy-washy, do it Martin Coy style, where, you know, you just let them get on with it, fight amongst yourselves, and then once when he starts crying, then I'll deal with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I have to say the best ref we had this season was last game against Stevenage. But that's the point, isn't it? You've got two physical teams. You know, Stevenage are quite similar to us in regards to their strengths. And against most teams in League One, they're going to have the physical edge, like we do against most teams. So yeah, if we had Martin Coy refereeing yesterday, you'd imagine that we probably would have got one or two moments where the game stopped in Orient's favour. Maybe it wouldn't have, and who knows what happens there. But so yeah, I get your point. I agree with you in that the ref was nowhere near as good as he was last time. Yeah. I liked Martin Coy. I liked that he was more lenient, and I think the more lenient the referee is, that suits us more in regards to our style. But yeah, it probably didn't have a huge impact on the result. But your point does stand.
There was one moment where there was a clear foul, and the ref wasn't looking at it. And it's like, well, that's a foul, ref. And then they were attacking. So I remember us saying, well, if they score from this, there'll be uproar. And they didn't score from it. But my point just goes to this. I understand them stepping up. But if you're refereeing National League, step up to League Two and do those two together. If you step up from League Two to League One, do those two together. But to referee Wealdstone one week and Lincoln, Leyton, Orient the next week, two completely different levels. Just for me.
I think like things like game management and like the game craft, some call it the dark arts, that is greater the higher up you go.
Yeah.
So maybe didn't seem quite as aware of just like how the game's actually played at the level. I agree with that. But we're 32 minutes in and we've only spoken about the first half.
Yeah, because there's nothing really to talk about in the second half. There's a goal for them. No, we came out relatively well in the second half. The first 5 minutes, I think we got to 51 minutes and we'd had a couple of chances. Bayliss put one well over. Rico with a good opportunity offside that he's blazed over. We started with a little bit of intensity. But from there, I mean, it's more or less everything that we've just been speaking about happened again. We just dropped off, even by Michael Scabala's own admission. We weren't really at it in the second half. It was like the first half, but we were just worse than in the second half.
Yeah. Second half was more disappointing than the first. I think the first because our threat lasted a higher percentage of the half, didn't it? It was good 15, 20 minutes. It was looking really good. And then petered out a little bit. But I went in at half time feeling, right, that was not a bad first half. If we can up it again and have a good start in the second half and keep that level up, we'll be okay. But we had 5 minutes of being good and then 40 minutes of not being anything really compared to what we've become accustomed to. Goal was, well, they had one chance before that, which was a really good move, actually, which Wiggins made a big save. Yeah, that was a really big save. That's probably the only big chance that Orient created in the whole afternoon. The goal they scored wasn't a big chance. It was a great finish, really good header, but wasn't really a big chance that they've created. It was just a really good glancing header. The phase actually started because we pressed high and then we were kind of on the defensive a little bit, and Tom Bayliss was tracking his man and was unable to put a challenge in because he was on the booking. I think that's the reason why. And yeah, he could have won the ball, but we did have players behind him. If he didn't win the ball, he's off. So it made sense for him to not really engage with the challenge there. But it's one of those moments that if he wasn't on a booking already, he could afford to put a challenge in. And if he wins it, brilliant, we're in. And if he doesn't, we're not. The ball was in our third then for maybe 15, 20 seconds, a couple of phases, but it then got its way out to the right hand side. House was 1v1, and then there's decent ball in, good header, goal. So I don't think it's anyone's fault as such. It's just one of those situations, but it's the fact that we've been bitten again from not taking our chances earlier in the game.
Maybe I've got a bit of a face on with it tonight. I do feel like I've got a bit of a face on, so my apologies if that's the case. Whether he's on a booking or not, I remember that moment now because we discussed it. He wasn't having to leap in from 5 yards away. It's a tackle. And for me, it wasn't... I don't want to come across as down on all these players. It's never too high, never too low. I get that. But I remember looking at that, just thinking, do you know what? If you can't make a fair tackle in that situation on a booking or not on a booking, you're not having to jump in. There isn't a lot of risk. It's almost like, I don't know. I think if he makes a genuine attempt for the ball, I don't think the referee's going to give him a second booking anyway. He's not coming in from behind. He didn't have to come in studs up. For me, because I said, I think at the time, didn't I, that I thought it was weak. I like Tom Bayliss, and I thought he was probably one of our better players yesterday, even though, the stats don't particularly back that up. He at least got on the ball. He at least wanted to drive forward. He at least found Rico, and Rico strayed offside for that opportunity. But again, for me, just it's a tackle. And I thought telling when the goal went in, I always look at who are the defenders shouting at when that ball hits the back of the net. Everyone else might be looking at where the player's turning away. And Bradley looked to be directing his anger out. I think it was Ben House who was back trying to block. And for me, like, that almost negates the anger straight away anyway, because it's like, well, hang on, that's an attacking player who's come back and he's blocking it. But it looked to me like Bradley was angry that the cross has come in.
Yeah, I'd say 2 points. I do disagree with you, Bayliss, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. But on House, I did think in the moment, he could be a bit closer. But also, he's been good on the ball. Was it? I can't remember who it was. I think it was Abdullahi who put the ball in. So House was 1v1 and didn't have a lot of backup. So I think if he gets closer to the ball, he's then prone to being dribbled around into a very dangerous area. But as it was, he probably wasn't quite close enough to stop the cross. So yeah, I understand a little bit of frustration there. But like, Ben House won the ball back, I think, more than anyone else yesterday. So it's difficult to blame him. But on the Bellis thing, I think if he fouls him there, it's a yellow, because he is chasing back. And I think if that's the other way around, I think if we're on the attack there and the opposition's chasing back, whether he's got a booking or not, and we get brought down there, we're screaming that's a booking, ref. It is, absolutely. So, and he wasn't the last man. There were settled defense, well, not settled, but there were defenders behind him. So it's the risk versus the reward. Risk winning the ball back and stopping the attack now, good, brilliant. Maybe a 20-30% chance of winning the ball in that situation. If you don't do that, it's a foul. And in my opinion, it's a yellow. Leyton Orient's player is between man and ball. So I think any clip, any touch is a foul, and that's a yellow in that situation because they are on a counter. And actually, the ball goes in, gets knocked out again. So we do defend that phase well. I do just feel that it's a bit not frustrating, but if Bayliss wasn't on a yellow card, I think he just takes the foul there. Or if he doesn't win the ball back, he takes a foul, and we set up to defend a free kick, which we're capable of doing. But for me, that's where the phase, the actual attacking phase, comes from. It's not Tom's fault. I think Tom's made the right decision to pull out of the challenge there, because I think it's a yellow card if he doesn't win it back. So we can agree to disagree, can't we?
Yeah, we can. I just think with 30 fouls in the game and he only gave 2 yellow cards, I don't think he's given a yellow card there. But anyway, it is what it is. It didn't lead directly to the goal. After that, I think probably we just ought to talk about one other chance as well. I know we're on 38 minutes, so we're going to have to be quite quick with Bradford and maybe cut out what we were going to talk about with other League One managers. But Frankie Okawankwo, the more I have watched that late chance, I think that's as good as the first 2 minutes. I think that's a bigger chance than anything else we've got in the game towards the end. I think it comes across. I think it's comes across from the right-hand side, doesn't it? And he's edge of the area. He just blasts it. I mean,
yeah.
And you think if he just catches that sweetly, to be fair, it's not unlike Ben House's chance, but there's more players in between him. But the way that he has the time to just watch it drop, he's almost got a little bit more time. Just again, it's easy to pick over in the moment, isn't it? But I think that was a bigger chance. Didn't even make the official highlights on YouTube, and for me, it's our third best chance of the game.
Oh, it's on the extended highlights. It's right at the end, extended. I thought it was a huge chance. I think it was absolutely a huge chance, and it's because he had more time than I think he realised than maybe most of us did in the moment. Because the ball seemed to take an age to come down. In fairness to him, but he could have left it just a split second longer, let it come down just a little bit more, so he's not underneath the ball, he's more over it, and then yeah, if it's a shot on target, you can't ask for any more than that. If the keeper saves it, keeper saves it. But yeah, it felt like a bit of a waste, and that epitomises the rest of the game, doesn't it? With the chances that we did create, we were wasteful, and yeah, and it is becoming a trend, sadly. And we mentioned this in the preview. Myself and Ben did on Wednesday, whenever it was. And someone asked in the comments, are we concerned about the lack of chances that we've been taking? And my answer at the time was not yet, because we were very spoiled at the start of the season. We were one of the highest chance. I think we had the highest chance conversion percentage in League One, so we were putting away a lot more of our chances than you'd expect us to do so, and you'd expect that to even out as the season goes by. However, there is a very obvious recurring theme from 3 matches in a row now, which is we have not taken the chances that we've created. Got bitten against Exeter, got away with it against Stevenage, and then we got bitten with it yesterday as well. So
apologies, by the way. I've just banned somebody from the comments because I'm in such a bad mood and they're just boring me, going on and on and on about how bad we were and how ineffective we were. So my apologies for doing that. I've seen my arse. We'll go to a quick break and then we will come back and just finish off the game. I don't think there's an awful lot more, but I want to talk about a game that it was a little bit similar to. So we'll go for a break. We'll have a look through some comments and then we will be back in just a few seconds. Yeah, apologies for that. I've actually just banned, the guy that always trolls us all the time.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and he was just going on about ineffective. I want to talk about the subs, but he was going on about ineffective subs. He's going on about why wait till 60 minutes. Everybody was rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't mind people commenting that we weren't good enough. That's fine. I'm saying exactly the same thing, but every 30 seconds in the comments, it's him coming up. Just can't be doing with it at the minute. Not got the patience. Right, let's have a look and see who is with us. Apologies if you're watching at home and you think I'm a bit of a twat, but I am in a foul mood at the moment. So there we go. Right, so David Ward is here. He can't listen, but he will watch later. So hello there, Ian London Imp. We brought a great number to Orient yesterday. It was a bit of a reality check. I would tend to agree rather with that.
Oh dear. I don't know if this is my end or Gary's end again, ladies and gents, but
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, cool. I'll be quiet.
It's a good job that that's not on the official recording, isn't it? I just saw my internet go. I don't really know why. So I was just saying that it was a bit of a reality check, and maybe but if we go and win against Bradford, then we're high again. That's football. So. Harry Jackson, how are we doing? Jacob is in. Jacob Langham. How are you, my friend? Gaz Nicholson is in. Stephen Essex. Big Tang is in, fresh from his rowing up and down the Norfolk Broads. Devon Imp is in. Early start caught me out. Evening to Kev Barwise. Collins Berry's one of those early gifts. Don't think they were gifts. I think we created the chance ourselves. Not a gift if you create it, I don't think. But there we go. Stephen Essex, we look good on the 65-inch screen. Just want to say that again because people don't tell me I look good. I think I look a bit pale on this. I
think you look pretty normal, mate. Well, normal for you.
Well, I always look pale then. I might do. Mark W is in. Eric Ring and Oscar Thorne not in the squad. No, quite correct. They weren't. John Leonard, good afternoon, gentlemen. Collins has to start Tuesday. Andy Pandy is with us. Just going through. Didn't catch Sue in first time. It's good to see you, Sue. Good evening, gents. We didn't on it after the first 10 minutes. There's certainly a reoccurring theme, isn't there? Dave Tuplin, evening, everybody. Steve Jollins, what a league this season. Dropped 6 points in the last 3 games and still only be 2 from the leaders. It is a good point, to be fair. Yeah. Jay is in. Your body's in the box, but that header once connected went in very easily. I think it's a difficult one, if I'm honest, because it loops up and over Wickens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think that goes in very often, but it was. No. You got to credit the finish when it does go in.
Yeah, and we'll pick up on this. Remind me, but Chris Keneally says up the young imps. He told me I've got to remember to big up the young imps at Peterborough tonight. So if you're watching live, 7:00, I think they kick off. So right. So when we come back in, Mr. Lamming, I want to make the Reading point. Is there anything you want to do before we then go on to Bradford? Apart from obviously retort to the Reading point, should
just. Yeah, not a lot really. No, I can put the bit I want to put in at the end of that.
Sound right. Let's come in. Oh, I nearly clicked end stream there.
That wouldn't be ideal.
Have I? Oh, I haven't. I don't have to pause it, do I? I'm all over the place. I'm thinking I need to unpause it, but I mean we're still live, aren't we? That's the point. Honestly, I need to get some sleep. Right, let's come back in. Hello and welcome back to the Stacey West podcast, where I am seemingly having a technical meltdown at the moment. I was about to end the stream because obviously if you're watching live on YouTube, we do a little bit in between the advertisement. Right. We've more or less covered the game, but I just want to pick up on how close this game was to another one that we played earlier in the season, which is actually Reading on the opening day. Now, we beat them 2-0. Passing-wise, we were probably as careless with the ball against Reading as we were yesterday. I think lateral passes were very similar. I think we were slightly lower accuracy against Reading than we were yesterday. Our passing accuracy generally was slightly lower yesterday than it was, slightly lower against Reading than it was yesterday as well. So there wasn't an awful lot of difference between the two matches, except we scored early against Reading and we were able to then execute the rest of the game plan perfectly. So it does show you, I think, the fine margins, between Exeter and Stevenage, almost identical games, but Stevenage, we were the one that got the late goal after we missed all the early chances. Reading and Orient, almost exactly the same type of game. And by the way, Reading with just as many quality players in the middle of the park, the likes of Lewis Wing as Orient had yesterday, but we got the early goal and we were able to see it out.
Yes, exactly right. It's interesting because I have a spreadsheet that I reference sometimes to track all the numbers I normally reference. I keep track of them through every game to look at any trends that are appearing, because you can't do that on FOTMOB. And it's interesting that you mentioned Reading, because earlier when I was inputting this for the Orient game, and we mentioned earlier that we were about 25-30% down on just accurate passes for us, and particularly in the opposition half. The next lowest numbers are the Reading game. So there is so many similarities to that game, other than the key one, which is we didn't score in this one. And if you don't take the lead, then we know what can happen. It's happened twice now, hasn't it, in 3 games? So, yeah. But what I will say with an element of balance is that we've had a brilliant start to the season. As a comment in the chat halfway in our little break, mentioning that we've lots of other teams around us dropped points yesterday, where we lost 2 in 3 games, and we're still 2 points off the top of the league. So I think the previous matches, and particularly the consistency of our performances, allow us to have a little bit of an off day against Leyton Orient, but it becomes a very, very big game, even bigger than it was already going to be against Bradford on Tuesday.
Yeah, agreed. Just to clarify that, I mean, as I say, I've said multiple times, for some reason, I don't feel in a particularly good mood on this podcast. And I'm maybe looking at the game from a glass half empty rather than a glass half full. But at the same time, it is one chapter in a story that at the minute has pretty much gone our way. It's the first game this season where we haven't either played well or got the points we wanted. Every other game we've either taken something from it when we haven't played particularly well, or we've played well and not taken something from it. Wimbledon probably the only one, but that was with 10 men, so it's the only level playing field. So it's the first time in what we're on now, 14 games, I think, might be incorrect. 13 games, so we're like almost a third through the season. And this is the first time that we've been bad and got nothing at the same time. So a little bit of context, as ratty as I sound, it's just really an outcome from a single game rather than something reflective. And I think I just urge supporters listening as well just to bear that in mind, that it doesn't mean that Michael Skabala is suddenly making the wrong selections when 3 weeks ago we were beating Luton and Peterborough and battling the world champions over 90 minutes. We haven't suddenly gone wrong. There's a reason that Oscar Thorne and Eric Ring are not playing, and that's because the manager does know best. We can argue over which striker should be playing or which should be doing what, but generally it's an upward trajectory, and this is just a minor bump on the road. One hopes that takes us forward into what we hope will not be a minor bump against Bradford City. Curiously, of the 7 games that we've played against Bradford City, 5 of the last 7, I should say, have all been at Valley Parade, which is quite amusing. The last 2 games there, we've won 5-0 and 3-0. I would take either of those again, but it's a top of the table clash. They drew with Stevenage yesterday. Probably looking at it, they didn't create a huge amount, which is unusual because they've really surprised people, Chris, haven't they? Coming up, scoring goals, looking like a good unit. There's a lot to be said for for being on a roll, for getting that promotion bounce, and for consistency and building over time.
Yeah, they're really good. They're really good. I think when we predicted the league table pre-season, which is it's obviously an impossible task, but all of us and anyone that's predicted the table that I've seen predicted Bradford to be comfortable. I don't think anyone saw that they was going to be in a relegation battle this season. Thought they were going to be very, very comfortable. I don't think any of us saw them being legitimately one of the best teams in the league, though. And they are that, and they're good for it. Mentioned this against Stevenage in the preview for that game, saying that they're top of the league at the time and they are good for it. The only little criticism to Stevenage was that they were scoring a lot more of their chances than you'd expect them to. They were massively overachieving in that regard. So you'd expect the goals to dry up at some point, but they were really solid defensively. But Bradford are performing as they should be, according to the majority of the metrics. They've the most goals in the league, and their XG is almost exactly what their goals for suggests it should be. They are legitimately good. So they've, of course, played 13 games so far this season, won 7, drawn 5, lost just the single game, averaging 2 points a game. Really good team, specifically at home. Now, of course, I think Bradford have a huge home advantage with their support at Valley Parade. Played 6, won 5, drawn 1, lost 0, 2.67 points per game. Obviously, the best in the league at home. This is not going to be an easy game. I've got so many notes here in terms of numbers, but what's really interesting is that they're so similar to us in most metrics in terms of like style. Formation's different, which we can touch on, but in terms of pretty much everything else, we're very similar. It's two similar teams, two, I think, quite good teams battling against each other on Tuesday night. It's going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talk about the kind of the relationship between the two clubs, which makes it a little bit more special. But if you take it as a one-off game, they've been a sleeping giant for ages now. When Stuart McCall was sacked, they were top-end League One, and they kind of plummeted. They've been stuck down in League Two. So these are the sort I like to see these games on the fixture list. The Bradford Cities, the bigger teams, local teams, goes with the Doncasters, goes with the Rotherhams, but Bradford are a different level again, in my opinion. They're a championship club in the Leyton, so it's going to be a special night. And I've been to several games at Valley Parade, both as Lincoln fan and as a Bradford fan. I used to get on very well with Bradford mascot as he was at the time. Lenny, great club, lots of fondness for them. We've had really good record against them in the past. Now, I look at their team and I see players that you would think probably wouldn't be a success in League One anymore. I mean, Sarcevic has been around for ages. He scored the goal for Bolton that beat us the day that we unveiled TJ Aomi. You've got Max Power, who was kind of in and out of the Sunderland side the year that we beat them in the playoffs. They've got the boy Neufville from Wimbledon, who was a League Two player last season, who I understood that we kind of looked at in the summer and didn't quite fit what we wanted to do, mainly because he plays as, I think, a right wing back. And as you said, they play a 3 at the back with wing backs. Torre, possibly, was he at Salford off the top of my head?
Yes.
Torre and Neufville getting quite high as well. So, horses for courses, I suppose. But up top, is it Will Swan, a player that I kind of looked at him and not really a particularly big name striker for this division, but he's been in and around it. Andy Cook is just on his way back. They're a decent side. They're up there for a reason. That sounds like really lazy analysis, but they are, and they've surprised everybody. But it's that momentum, isn't it? And I think every year there's a team, and this year there's a couple that come out of League Two that just use that momentum. They build well. They don't. I said it about Michael Scabala earlier in the week. It's an evolution, not revolution. And Bradford have gently evolved. And quite often, the team that comes up and does well is not the team that wins the title. Quite often, the team that comes up and does well is one that either comes through the playoffs or kind of makes the late surge. A couple of years ago, it was Stevenage. Wimbledon have done it again this year, but every year there seems to be one. Obviously, Stockport and Wrexham last year was fairly obvious. So, yeah, I'm quite impressed with Bradford, and I think it will be a really interesting game.
Yeah, you can't have got a much more kind of interesting or eye-catching way to get promoted as well. The massive high that's you're gonna get kind of the final kick of the season to guarantee to seal promotion. with Sarcevic, I think, wasn't it, that actually got that goal. You're just going to be riding on a crest of a wave throughout the whole summer, and they've just carried it on. They've been brilliant. They've been absolutely brilliant this season. So in terms of the underlying numbers, as mentioned, I'm not going to go into too much depth with these, but in terms of just the XG, we mentioned their goals for are good, but goals against is good as well. They've actually conceded 16 goals, which is not amazing, but they should have only conceded 13-ish, which is actually similar to us. We've got almost identical XG against. We've actually kind of conceded a couple of goals less than theoretically we should have according to the numbers, and they've conceded a couple more. But the underlying numbers are pretty good. That they're best in the league from an attacking perspective in terms of chances generated. That's what that shows, and they're pretty good at keeping them out the other end. So, yeah, if you're good at both of those two things, you're probably quite a good team, aren't you? That's sometimes it is as simple as that. But I will say there's a bit of a freak here though, because they played 13 games. They've only kept 2 clean sheets in that time. So both teams to score in betting metrics would actually be correct and come in 85% of the time in their games, which is the most in League One.
I'm not having that from you, because we were looking down our betting because we put accumulators on yesterday, and you had both teams to score, Colchester and Swindon.
Well, yeah.
And it was 0-0.
Of course it was. It's football. And yesterday we predicted that you'd almost expect both teams to score in the Orient Lincoln game because of everything that's happened previously. And that's why we love football, because it doesn't always go as you expect it to. But I think it's interesting that as well as they've done, and they have been excellent, they've only kept 2 clean sheets. Whether that is legitimate or not, because they're XG against and the XG created and the chance of for and against, shots for and against, they deserve to win the games they've won. They absolutely do. They haven't really had a smash and grab at any point this season. They've won the games that they deserve to win. Ultimately, they're really, really good. They're a really, really strong side, and it's going to be a very, very tough game for us. Stylistically, we're very, very similar in terms of number of passes, in terms of long passes, in terms of where the chances are generated from. Really, really similar. The only real difference is they're very cross-dominant, which makes sense when they play wing-backs. We're less reliant on crosses, but everything else in terms of how the game is played is almost identical, other than formation. They've played a back 3, 2 holding midfielders, 2 wing-backs, and then a front 3 in various shapes every game this season. On paper, it's been written down as a 3-4-2-1, but the 1 and the 2, sometimes it's like a really narrow, like a box midfield. Sometimes it's wingers. The personnel in those front 3 has been rotated quite heavily this season as well. But it's a system that it's actually my favorite formation. But they're well drilled in that. They're really well drilled. But it relies on the wing backs, and they've got good wing backs.
Let's just pick up as well on their injury list, because you say they've rotated, but at the moment they've got Sarcevic out now. Stephen Humphrey's out. Now, there's no guarantee these are out. I've not got confirmation these are out for our game, but these were out on Saturday. Bobby Poynton was missing. Alex Patterson, injury. Across the back, Matthew Pennington, Aidan Baldwin and Curtis Tilt all out as well. So they are beginning to lose players to injury. So in actual fact, let's look back now with a little bit of hindsight and say, were we right to cancel this game at the time? Well, actually, they're now struggling with injuries, depending on whether Adam Reach is fit or not, because obviously I think we did miss him a little bit. It's not why we lost the game yesterday, but I do think we missed his creativity and he's running down the flank a little bit. Be interesting to see whether we believe that is something that is a factor or not.
Yeah, agreed. And it's worth pointing out that as good as they've been and as many games as they've won and they're good at home, just in terms of form, they've drawn their last 3 games. So they haven't won in 3. So that's a positive for us. There are players missing. As mentioned, Sarcevic is joint top scorer with 5 goals. He's missing. He's also got a couple of assists in there. So if he is missing Tuesday, that's a big miss for them. Bobby Poynton is also scored 5 goals from 2.1 XG, by the way. So that's interesting. If he's missing, though, that's a source of goals that's missing. Will Swan, you mentioned, is doing well. He's scored 4 and is good for it. Humphrey's taken the most shots per night than anyone in League One. Second for touches in the box per 90 in League One. If he's missing, that's going to be a big miss. And 2 matches in a week with a limited squad, particularly on a squad that relies on wing backs, and they have 2 guaranteed starting wing backs that play 90 minutes in most games. there are enough elements of this that give me hope that we could be competitive in this game and get something out of it. And also the fact that we tend to react to losing games pretty well. We lost to Exeter, of course, recently, came back and beat Stevenage with a really good performance. We lost to Wimbledon, came back and beat Plymouth. So in the games that we've lost, we've won after them. And we've played well in those games as well. So I'm going into this. There's certainly elements of positivity here. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, as you say. They're in terms of just squad depth and shape. We're probably in a better position in terms of the depth and the health of our squad than Bradford are, it would appear right now. So maybe it was a good time to cancel the game first time round. Hey, we'll know whether that was the right decision or not come 10 o'clock on Tuesday night, won't we? But there's certainly elements of this that give me some hope. To be honest, if we get a point, I'll be pleased. But I think we can certainly come away here with 3 points. But if we create lots of chances and don't take them again, Bradford absolutely are good for creating chances, good for scoring goals, particularly at home. So it's a really interesting game that's quite interestingly poised as well, I think.
I will jinx it now. We lost against Bradford on Boxing Day 2007. That's the last time we lost at their place. Peter Thorne and Barry Conlon with a first-minute goal and a 90th minute goal. Before that, we hadn't lost at Valley Parade since January 1979. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 visits. So it's all poised, isn't it, for us to now get beat, because I've been a jinx, and we're both jinxes, and we probably did it right because we both picked Sarcevic in our fantasy team.
Yeah, true.
So kiss of death. Right, moving on really quickly because we are just about out of time, but we can do this quite quickly. It's been a really interesting day in League One. So first of all, it was yesterday in reality, but Darren Ferguson given the boot at Peterborough. Now, while I understand that Grant McCann is ironing his interview suit and Steve Evans is investing in one that's 4 sizes smaller because he's been on a remarkable weight loss journey, it looks like it could be Luke Williams going in there. But interestingly, I pulled up betting markets and Michael Appleton is 5th favourite at 12-1. So I can't really see that happening. It was interesting to see Dara finally pull the trigger. And it's almost like watching a reality TV show and then seeing the news headline out the back of it. Because if you listen to the Hard Truth podcast, Dara's quite open. It's been this saga playing out. He's backing the manager. He believes in his manager. He got rid of Bradley Hiriavan, I can't say his name, the striker that they signed from Colchester that then loaned out to Shrewsbury, who's now injured for 7 months because he didn't get on with the manager. So he's really backed him, and then snapped, lose 2-1 against Blackpool, off he goes.
Yeah, I think it's time, isn't it? And yeah. we've poked fun at Peterborough a little bit on this podcast, and I've enjoyed it, I have to say. And I'm not a massive fan of Darren Ferguson, to be honest, just as a bloke. However, he's synonymous with Peterborough United, and Darren McCann, they've clearly got a positive relationship with each other. And I read his statement, and maybe a little bit over the top, but it goes to show there's some genuine connection there, and you don't get that very often in football. But let's be honest, like Posh have been poor, really, really poor this season. I don't think their transfer window has been great. And also yesterday, they were quite unlucky to lose to Blackpool. Obviously, a late winner for Blackpool, lifting them off the foot of the table. But Posh had 27 chances in that game, 27 shots, and only 1 went in. But 10 points from 13 games is obviously crap. 5 points adrift as well from the safety of 20th position, where Burton and Reading occupy. But if you look at the table, the teams that are down there, Blackpool, you expect them to improve under their new manager. Plymouth down in 22nd position. The squad that they've got, they're going to improve, whether that be under Tom Cleverley or not. Port Vale, underlying numbers really, really positive. You'd expect them to be comfortable. Burton probably going to be down there. Reading, you expect them to improve. I'll touch on them in a moment. Wickham, loads of investment. There's a lot of teams that have had slow starts that you expect the majority of them to improve, and the teams that you expect to be down there have already got points on the points on the chart, haven't they? So Posh are in a really, really, really dodgy position here. So they needed to change. I struggle to see whether a new manager makes a huge difference. I don't think it's a particularly strong squad, but I think this was inevitable. It was when rather than if, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then in the League One chat that I'm in, there was a little thing a little note came through, said 2 sackings in 24 hours. Now, because it was instant, so the guy that put it in was actually, and we'll touch on it, was a fan of the club who have sacked their manager. My first thought was, right, who is it? So the first thing I looked at was Norwich. Is it Liam Manning? No. The second thing I looked at was, it's got to be Huddersfield then, hasn't it? It's not Huddersfield. I was a little bit surprised that it was Reading. I mean, they did draw yesterday. They are 2 points clear of the relegation zone, albeit with Burton, Port Vale, Plymouth and Peterborough all having games in hand. But they have pulled the trigger on Noel Hunt. And it's probably not surprising, because when Ruben Sellés left, I thought they would collapse, because Ruben Sellés had done a great job. And Sheffield United fans and Hull fans can't see that because he's been poor for them. But he did a great job at Reading. He went, Noel Hunt came in. They played us at Christmas. We beat them 2-0. They were woeful. It was one of his first games, if I remember correctly. And then after that, they went on a run. They did really well, pushing on the door of the playoffs last season. I think they were pipped, weren't they, right at the death. Expected to be up there this season, and it just hasn't happened for them. Paddy Lane gone in there. Pantomime villain, been crap. They've got good players in the midfield. I think we said, they'll not be anywhere near it at the end of the season, but here they are. So not Huddersfield sacking a manager, not Norwich, not Plymouth, as I thought might come after the Devon derby, but it's Noel Hunt.
Yeah, surprised by this, I have to say. And I felt like it might happen at some point, but I didn't think it was going to happen now, particularly off the back of a draw. Just looking at the results, like they haven't actually lost they've lost once in the league, since playing Barnsley away on the 13th of September. So they've only lost 1 in 7 league games. A few draws, not many goals either way, but they've been far from woefully bad in terms of results. However, you mentioned a key word there, or a key name in Ruben Sellés, who is currently available. So, is he not?
No, he's in Spain.
Oh,
he went to Zaragoza, I think.
Oh, well, I stand corrected on that then. Well, what I was going to say is, if he's available, it makes sense to offer him the job back, and maybe he'll turn back up at Reading. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Fair enough.
5 days ago, he went to Real Zaragoza. I actually reported on it for Real FM. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
There we go. So it'll be interesting. Again, I haven't seen a list of their top targets. It wouldn't surprise me if very soon Michael Skubala doesn't get mentioned in the next manager odds. But with Rob Couhig being the manager at Reading, you do have to wonder if Gillingham might be thinking, are we going to get approached for our manager? Because obviously Rob was a big Gareth Ainsworth fan. Just looking at this now, it says reports earlier in the season indicated Reading were weighing up a move for Ainsworth if they parted company with Hunt. Other than that, Luke Williams is up there, who's also being mentioned for Peterborough. Damien Duff, Des Buckingham as well being mentioned.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. It's weird, isn't it, the league table at the moment? Excuse me, because as we just mentioned, there's loads of teams down there that are objectively underperforming compared to where they'd expect to be, have already made managerial changes, or managers very much under pressure. So you'd imagine not all of them are going to improve, but you would imagine a good few of those teams are going to start to improve a little bit, which is the benefit of us getting the points on the table early doors, of course. But also just bringing it back to Peterborough a little bit, it's going to be really difficult for them to get themselves dragged out of that, because they're fighting against teams that shouldn't be down there, really, on paper. And Reading, in a similar position, though, are a little bit better off and aren't quite as easy to play against. But I imagine we'll see a bit more change down there in the next month or so. And yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I think Plymouth, if they don't get another positive result, then
there's Mansfield Tuesday. I think if they lose there, I think Cleverley will be gone.
Yeah, makes sense, wouldn't it?
Right, well, there we are. We have reached the end of the Stacey West podcast, and I've just screwed up my bit of paper that tells me what times we paused it for the break, because it has been a challenging one for some reason for me. I felt very edgy. I've banned somebody in the chat. I'm not one to normally react, so say that though to people, or say, yeah, you are. You had to turn your Twitter comments off. So But it's just, I don't like losing, and I don't like losing after I think we were good. And I thought that we were really good. So good luck this evening as this goes out live to the under-18s who are playing, or the academy. They were playing away at Peterborough United in the FA Cup. It's a tough game. Peterborough United technically one level above, even though we're both League One sides. Their academy is a higher category academy than ours, and they play in the whatever division it is that feeds or sits under the Premier League 2, whereas we're in the Youth Alliance. It's very complicated. I did do a breakdown of it on my FA Cup draw, so if you want to check that out, you can go back to the site and search Youth Alliance, I think, and you will find it. That was episode 417, the Stacey West podcast. Disappointment in the capital for the Imps, but a chance to get back on the horse nice and quickly as we visit Bradford City for the rearranged game. Will injuries play a part for Bradford? Will James Collins start for Lincoln City? All of that and more will be revealed over the next 48 hours. But for now, over and out. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.
Thank you.